Hello, good people of YouTube, Mountbatten here, and today we'll be talking about a couple of ship recommendations, well actually 5 and then some, ship recommendations for the upcoming season of Ranked. It's Tier 8, 7v7, with carriers involved. So these are my recommendations to you guys, and is this the end-all be-all? You gotta use one of these ships? No, of course not. There's actually, I could probably make it like a top 20 video, especially since this season of Ranked's at Tier 8, and there's a ton of ships at Tier 8. Premium ships, tech line ships, a lot of lines have already split by Tier 8, and Tier 8 used to be the stop of premium ships, but now, of course, premiums have now expanded to Tier 9 and even Tier 10. So, yeah, you could substitute many ships here, and I'm actually doing that for you guys this time as well. I'll give you guys the premium recommendation and then the tech line recommendation. A lot of these have 2 or 3 ships that could really fit this role that I'm trying to assign in the spot for said ship. I'm going to explain it as I go along. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking on each ship because this would, of course, be like a 40-minute video if not. So anyway, let's go ahead and get going with number 5. So since this season is at Tier 8 with CVs, of course, you got to include a couple of CVs. So my CV recommendations to you guys would be Enterprise, if you got it, Lexington, and Parzival. Enterprise because, of course, it's Enterprise. It's still broken even after the AP bomb nerf. The rocket planes are absolutely insane. The torpedo planes are very tough. You get the heal, and of course the torpedoes themselves are pretty good. And the AP bombs, oh my god, the AP bombs, you can still just remove cruisers from the match if everything goes ahead and lines up for you, and you carrier players, if you have Enterprise, you know what you're doing, you're probably going to rank up pretty dang fast. Lexington because it's fairly close to Enterprise. Again, it has the rocket planes and similar torpedoes. It has HE bombs instead of AP bombers, but can still get around and absolutely wreck some cruisers and destroyers with those rocket planes, and of course the torpedoes are fantastic as well. And the Parzival, I've recently unlocked it. The German CV video that will actually be coming out like actually a few days after this video, but it's quite fearsome. The AP rockets are fantastic against broadside and cruisers, and even battleships. Surprisingly, if you know where to aim at the weaker part of battleship armor, you can punish them quite harshly in Parzival. AP bombers too, they're very good against capital ships that are kind of stuck on their position, or even if they just aren't paying attention and don't maneuver in time, you can absolutely wreck them with the Parzival. So those are my CV recommendations. Alright, moving on now down to number 4. We've got the Kid. Of course, it's a CV season. You're gonna want to bring a fly swatter DD if you can, and why not bring a Tier 9 DD down tier to Tier 8? So the Kid's a Fletcher class destroyer, actually with one of the torpedo tubes ripped off from the Fletcher, and the other torpedo tube is actually the Benson torpedoes. But instead of two sets of torpedo tubes, you get more AA. Kid still is a fly swatter, even in the CV rework era, if you build for it. So captain skills, BFT, AFT, and modules. This is an absolute blender still today, which that's not easy to achieve in their current CV rework era. So Kid has DFAA, has a heal, has decent torpedoes. They're Benson torpedoes, but they're still useful in those oh crap situations, or those kind of, a ship's on the other side of the island and I want to rush him. You generally have enough knocking power with that one set of torpedoes to take out whatever you're going to see, unless it's like an absolute full health battleship. Then you might be in trouble there. But it's very useful. It's a Fletcher. It's a Tier 9 at Tier 8 with a couple of changes here and there. It has a heal too. I mentioned that a couple times already. And that's, of course, just great, especially in a CV rank season where they are going to be targeting you, even though you are in a Kid, especially when you get down to the lower ranks. So Kid would be my first choice. Then I would recommend for the tech line ships something like Benson, of course, the Tier 8 American DD. Great AA, and again, it's a gunboat just like the Kid. Not as good as the Kid in my opinion, but still pretty good. DD all around. Again, AA, gunboat, and you actually get 2 sets of torpedoes with the Benson. And then the Oland, or the Holland, the Tier 8 Pan-European DD. Of course, these destroyers have fantastic AA, good torpedo reload, fast as crap torpedoes too on top of that, and they get a heal as well. Granted, your engine will be knocked out every 5 seconds, but again, great AA, good torpedoes, somewhat decent gunboat if you get into a close range fight, but those would be my destroyer recommendations. I know there's plenty more, but those are just the ones that I'm familiar with that I would recommend. Alright, moving on down now to number 3. We have the Tier 8 American cruiser, Wichita. So the Wichita is a premium ship. I think it is still for sale, and it has absolutely fantastic AA. No CV unless they're really desperate is going to go after you, or they will pay for it quite dearly, even in a 7v7 competitive format. Has great AA. Its gimmick is that it's basically the old New Orleans, where it doesn't get the improved American AP. It doesn't have the super heavy American AP shells and the pin angles. So you won't be able to pin with AP as much as you would with the Baltimore, which is actually what I would say is the tech line alternate if you want to take that. But it does have fantastic AA. And that's the main thing I was looking for when I was looking for a cruiser, because again, this season, the German CVs, the Parzival's going to be out, and those AP rockets can absolutely wreck your broadside in a cruiser if you're not paying attention, not trying to angle against them. So the Wichita would be my recommendation, or the Baltimore, or even the Cleveland, if you want to throw those in there. The two tech line American Tier 8 cruisers, or also Prince Eugen if you want to go for tankiness and a heel. Prince Eugen, some people don't like it. I like it. It's a really fun cruiser in my opinion, and a really good cruiser too. You can even throw mains in there if you want to as well. The premium Tier 8 German cruiser. It has pretty decent AA. It's got 32 millimeters of pin on its guns. Has around a 6-second reload depending on how you build for it, and a pretty good ship all around. And not to mention the utility of the two Germans, the Prince Eugen and the mains. Prince Eugen's got hydro, so does the mains. And again, great ship choices for this ranked season if you want to go with that. Again, those are my cruiser recommendations. Moving on down now to number 2. We have the North Carolina or the Massachusetts. Funny story behind the game you're watching right now. I actually thought I took my actual Massachusetts, not my Massachusetts B, who is my captain trainer for my American brawler captains. So he's barely got even a basic secondary build on in this clip you're watching right now. No manual secondaries, no superintendent. Don't even have flags on this guy, because I took them all off a little while ago because I was running out of flags. But yeah, funny story. That's why if this replay looks like I'm just going for it, it's because I am, because I'm like, oh, I'm in the wrong Massachusetts. Let me just hurry up and get this round over with. But some funny stuff happened, so I just let it play. So yeah, Massachusetts, absolutely fantastic AA. North Carolina as well. And the Massachusetts would, of course, be my first recommendation because it's so good. It's got that really quick cooldown time on its heal, that really quick cooldown time on its damage con. It has that American damage con that runs for 20 seconds. Has the Massachusetts secondaries. You can get them out to 11.3 kilometers, and they are deadly accurate if you have a secondary build with manual fire for secondaries. AA, nobody's going to try to touch you. If they do, they're going to pay for it. And very maneuverable ship. And it's just a fantastic ship. You guys know, I love the Massachusetts. Oh, and it's got 45%, actually I think it's like 48% torpedo damage reduction, so you can afford to kind of push some cruisers and know that if you eat some torpedoes, you're not going to be crippled for the rest of the match. It's just a fantastic ship for ranked. And you could, of course, take the Alabama if you're really worried about CVs. Alabama and North Carolina is pretty much the same. And to be clear, some people really get their stuff in a twist over this. When I say Alabama, Massachusetts, and North Carolina are basically the same, I don't mean the actual ship classes. I know there are different classes. I'm just saying their play style is very similar in their overall, well, except for the Massachusetts, but their overall loadout, the 45 caliber 16-inch guns, the secondary loadouts, they're pretty much the same. There's a little bit of difference between the armor of the Alabama and the Massachusetts. They're a little bit tougher than the North Carolina, but they're very similar. That's all I'm saying. People really get their stuff in a bind over that. But anyway, yeah, Alabama, very similar to North Carolina, not as accurate. A lot more AA. Well, not a lot more, but a good bit more AA. North Carolina's still a good AA ship, but Alabama and Massachusetts are still absolute plain blenders. So if you're worrying about CVs, take either the Massachusetts, the Alabama, or you can still take the North Carolina if you're worried about CVs. It has a pretty decent AA suite if you build into it. And plus, it's a really tough ship. Accurate ship too, 2.1 Sigma. And you can get a pretty decent range in North Carolina as well. Alright, honorable mention number 1. We have, of course, the Bismarck and the Tirpitz. This season, I would recommend you take the Bismarck. CVs are going to be everywhere. Tirpitz, I know it's a Tirpitz, it's a knife fighter, but it just doesn't have the AA that the Bismarck has. And, if you're feeling lucky, if you're not getting a lot of carrier games, go ahead, take the Tirpitz out. I may even risk it. But CVs are going to be everywhere, so I would recommend you take the Bismarck over the Tirpitz. Bismarck has more AA than the Tirpitz, and it has hydroacoustic search on top of that. Tirpitz has torpedoes and has to give up AA and a hydro for that. Other than that, the ships are exactly the same in regards to armor and main battery guns. They both have 8 15-inch guns, have the same accuracy. They have the same secondary suite, which they are German secondaries, so they can get out to over 11 kilometers, and most of the secondaries can pin 32 millimeters of armor, which is plenty to pin the armor of battleships you see, and the rest of the guns can surely pin just about every other cruiser or destroyer that you are going to see in this season of Ranked. So very good ships for Ranked. You can run it down in these ships, but I would recommend you take the Bismarck, more AA, and this season is probably going to be played at more of a medium range. I imagine once you get into the later half of the match, you might get up close, but with the CVs, it's going to be a toss-up with that. So honorable mention number 2 is the Tier 8 Premium Japanese battleship, the Key. So the Key is an Amagi, but with more AA, slightly less accurate guns, a little bit less range than the Amagi, and has 10-kilometer torpedoes. So again, going to be a lot of a lot of CVs around. So the AA on the Key is actually pretty dang good. It's one of the few Japanese battleships, or actually Japanese ships in general, that has pretty decent AA. Actually, it's more than decent. It's actually pretty darn good AA. And again, this is another ship before the CV rework. It was an AA blender, and after the CV rework, its AA isn't what it used to be, but it's still plenty good with an AA build to where the CVs will think twice about going after you. Now, a tip if you are going to be bringing the Key is don't try to use the torpedoes. They have a 10-kilometer range. They're more of, okay, that channel or that island, a ship could come around there. I'll just throw some torpedoes in that direction and hope they hit an enemy ship. Don't tort behind your allies. Please do not do that. Do not become that Key. But pretty good ship for this season. You can stay at longer ranges with the Key. By longer, I mean more towards its maximum range, and still hit shells consistently on target. You do have 10 410mm guns. They do pack one heck of a punch when they connect. Again, it's not as accurate as the Amagi. It's got, I think, like 0.1 or 0.2 less sigma than the Amagi, and the dispersion is a little bit wonkier, but it's still perfectly workable. And it even has some pretty decent secondaries, believe it or not. When you get within secondary range of the Key, because it only has 7-kilometer secondaries, again, just like the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, probably toward the end of the match, but for the most part, you got enough firepower with the main battery guns to keep in the fight, and enough AA to discourage the CVs from coming after you. Alright, my number 1 recommendation for this season of Ranked is the Odin. Who saw this coming? Most of y'all should have. Odin is the ultimate run-it-down ship. And like I said with the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, it's not going to be all that run it down, at least not in the first half. In the second half, more than likely. But even if you have to keep at medium ranges, the Odin's guns, with their pretty decent reload time, their relatively decent dispersion by German standards, you can keep in the fight in mid-range. And plus, it's got the longest range secondaries at Tier 8. And even people that don't like the Odin will at least admit it's really good pretty good in Tier 8 battles, and this is going to be nothing but Tier 8 battles, so you've got that going for you here. If you have a proper build for it, which is a full secondary build, you are going to have pretty decent AA, nothing too crazy, but definitely better. I'm finding that, at least with the Odin, it's got better than your average German AA, and German AA, even today, isn't all that bad, because most German battleship captains run a secondary build on their German battleships. That does boost the AA quite a bit. Is it a plane blender? No, but you will take a couple of planes with you from the CV attack wave. So, and again, the Odin, it's got all the gimmicks of the German battleship line crammed into one ship. You've got an icebreaker bow, you've got a 90mm stern, completely wrapped 90mm stern. You got turtleback armor. You got long-range secondaries. You got hydroacoustic search. You got the spotter plane or the fighter plane. You got the good AP. And keep in mind, people do say this about the Odin model. Oh, it's got these small guns. They can't pin in everything. If you know where to aim on a ship, it'll do just fine. They are a smaller caliber gun, so remember, there's parts of a battleship where you overpin them with other battleships. You'll pin them on the Odin and get pretty decent damage out of it. So if you know where to aim, you'll be perfectly fine. And plus they're smaller caliber guns, which means they're better against cruisers. Like I've said before, Odin's more of a really well armored battle cruiser stuck in a battleship slot. So there you have it. That's my recommendation to you right there. If you got the Odin, I know a lot of people are getting done with the dockyard right around now, so it's kind of perfect timing, and I'm sure Wargaming planned it. But my number one recommendation is the Odin. If you don't like the Odin, take the Bismarck. That would be my recommendation to you then. Alright guys, those are my recommendations for the upcoming season of Ranked. I guess it's really like a top 5 plus 5 or 6, really top 15, not top 15, I can't math, top 12, top 13 or so. But those are my recommendations to you guys. Let me know in the comments down below what ship are you going to be taking into this season of Ranked, and are you looking forward to this season of Ranked, looking forward to getting that still, or is it, rank grind, misery? I get it. I'm sure we'll all be well in the struggle for winning a battle and losing a battle and having a couple of emotional breakdowns, as every season of Ranked does. But anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. We're on our way to 15,000 subscribers. We're getting very close to 14,000 thanks to you guys, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I hope to catch you guys in the next one.